What do we see in OCD? We typically think of excessive hand washing or the constant repetition of numbers. Today we will dig deeper on how OCD affects people mentally and physically. We will learn what OCD means, and as educators, how we can identify and properly teach a student with OCD. Children and adults with obsessive-compulsive disorder suffer from unwanted and intrusive thoughts that they can't seem to get out of their heads, often compelling them to repeatedly perform ritualistic behaviors and routines to try and ease their anxiety. OCD affects about 2.2 million American adults. This translates to 2% of Americans have some form of OCD. It strikes men and women in roughly equal numbers and usually appears in childhood, adolescence, or early adulthood. 1/3 of adults with OCD develop symptoms as children, and research indicates that OCD might run in families. The Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, along with the Americans with Disabilities Act, allowed for children with OCD to receive intervention services and accommodations in school settings. The question most educators have when dealing with an OCD student is, how do we go about teaching them?
When you think about treatment for OCD, one of the best things you can do right off the bat when you're speaking with someone is just to help them feel more normal. A lot of times people come in, they can feel like I'm crazy because I have these obsessive thoughts or obsessive behaviors, and to talk with that person about how no, OCD is an actual disorder, but there's things that we can do to help you adjust to it or cope with it, and not, let them know that they're not crazy, to work on it. One of the important things that you try to do is, people oftentimes with the obsessive thoughts and behaviors, they're catastrophizing things. They're worried about loss of control. If I get germs on my hand, or if I forget to turn something off, will the house catch on fire? And oftentimes there's these really catastrophized thoughts around, if I get a germ, all of a sudden I'm going to get sick, or I'm going to die, or I'm going to spread this awful disease. And you talk with people a lot around just the reality of those things and help bring them back down to what's really probably the more appropriate thought, or what's more of a normal thought. Well, maybe it might just be my hands get dirty, or I could get maybe a cold or something from something, but I'm likely not going to die. The other thing you can do to help people with OCD sometimes is to give them a different behavior they can do while the obsessive thought or the ritualistic behavior is occurring. And maybe if I feel like I need to go wash my hands and I'm worried that I'm getting a germ, I might be saying, well, when that happens, why don't you just make sure to get up and you walk over and go sit in another chair, or you go walk down the hallway, and you try to replace the obsessive thought and behavior with some other routine, or what people call flow activities, to disrupt it and help people kind of get through things that way. Another important thing oftentimes is to consider medication. Medication can be really helpful for people with OCD. It helps bring some of the anxiety level down, and so oftentimes it doesn't eliminate the obsessive thoughts or compulsions, but it brings it down to a level where the person feels like they have more control or power over it to counteract it and not act on this obsessive thought that keeps on going through, or not act on the behavior that they want to do that's driven it. So medication, not necessarily all the time, but it may be a helpful thing to look at for someone certainly with OCD, to help them learn how to cope with it better.